Aye. Motion carries. Now we'll move to agenda policy. Our new attorney, who is here with us this morning, prepared a couple of, or sent us a couple of documents from other, that their firm had prepared for other clients of theirs. One was a city, one was a fire district. I looked at both of them. I talked to the chief about them. I went ahead and just redrafted the one regarding an agenda policy. I changed the dates because that was dealing with an agency that met more frequently than we do. They also wanted apparently required a longer lead time on agenda items. You don't put something under theirs. The minimum time to put something on the agenda was 2 weeks before the meeting. That seemed a little long for us, even though we only meet once a month. But we've been accustomed to being able to get things on the agenda shorter time than that. So I adjusted it to essentially what we've have agreed to do in terms of the time. And this was obviously for a city, so it had reference to the mayor and the city clerk. I changed those titles to the fire chief and the board secretary. Beyond that, it just seemed to me a good idea to have a written policy on how we how things are placed on the agenda. So I did that to let you look it over and see if you like the idea. If so, either as it is, or I'm open to suggestion for changes. I didn't make this up.
No, it's all
No
based
need,
on
no
the
need
Brown
to
Act.
reinvent the wheel when there's somebody out there doing that for us. And I think it's a good service if we
And these are the
receive.
dates that we agreed on last month, the time limits and all, to give Missy and Chief appropriate
Right.
Yep.
time to
Yep.
cover. I have no problem with it.
It says that the agenda will be posted at 5 p.m. on Thursday. And that's the last
Right.
day of the week that
Right.
Missy works, so we wouldn't want to
Absolutely.
go to Friday.
Okay, so here's the thing here. It says that that number 2, it says requesting a board meeting with the concurrence of one other board member that an item be placed on a future agenda.
That's new and different.
That's new and
just taken
different.
from what
If a
the
board
other
member
agency does.
proceeds under option 1, the written request for the agenda item must be made to the fire chief no later than the agenda, whatever, Tuesday prior to the Tuesday meeting, with proof that one other board member consented to the item being placed on the agenda. So it's going to have to take 2 people now
Yep.
to put
Yeah.
an item on the agenda, right?
I have
If
no
you
problem
agree to
with
this, you're welcome to change that.
Jennifer, is that legal under the Brown Act? Because
As long as you don't have
It's more the
3.
third one.
If you have 3,
the third is the board president, though.
right, but all he's doing is submitting, again, we're not discussing the item, and even with that second member, you're not discussing it, they're not agreeing to say whatever that item proposes, it's just, I agree this item should be placed on the agenda. So you're allowed to do that
Okay.
with the board president.
With no
reviewing
discussion
it.
of it. Okay.
Right. It's just simply, hey, I wanna put an
And
item
then
on
if
the
2
agenda.
people agree, it goes on. The chief and the president can't take it off. Because otherwise that would constitute a vote.
Right, again, it's
Yes,
just
would.
approving the request to get on the agenda, not
Right.
approving the subject matter
Right.
of the particular issue and the action that you're proposing or that a board member's proposing with their item.
But he still has to approve it being on the agenda. 2 board members
Right, I
have to
understand.
agree, and then
Just
it goes
something
to the
about it
chief
seems
and then
wrong to me.
It seems a little convoluted. And
Are we allowed to ask
It is.
questions? Why, if one board member has an item that he feels should be addressed to the rest of the board for consideration, why do you need two people from your board to put it on the agenda? Wouldn't one board member wanting information
Sure.
or one board member wanting
Yes.
to discuss an issue
Yes,
be
and
enough?
if you'd like to make a motion that we change this,
Am I allowed to make a motion?
no?
So thank you.
But if one of the board members
I'll make
wishes
the
to,
motion
uh,
that it should just be one person who should be able to put it on the agenda. That's 20% of the board.
okay. Motion is made, is there a second?
So it's a show.
Motion
That's a
dies for
tie in
lack of
your
a
own
second.
hand.
I have no problem with two people. It's not a matter of supporting one person
Well,
or
it's
the
just-
other. It's just, I think, just an accountability or whatever, so that we don't have 45 items
I just
on
see it
the
as being
agenda.
a hurdle. I mean, time constraints and things like that.
Yeah.
so it means ahead
think,
of time, two people have to get together and decide.
Right.
Then it has to be submitted to
Pat,
the
you
chief.
don't have the floor.
Then it has to be submitted.
It just means if he wants to put something on the thing, or I would like to put something on it, I could shoot an email to him and say, I was thinking I'd like to put this on.
And
Do
then
you have any
just-
problem with it being on the thing? And he's like, yay or nay. If he says nay, it's like, okay, I maybe overthought it. I have no issue with that.
Or-
So.
Uh, I'd suggest we just drop this item, since we obviously can't agree on it.
On what, this part?
No, the whole thing.
Oh, no, I don't think we.
I don't think we
I
should.
just think it's a good idea.
I think it's
For the-
definitely a good idea to have a policy.
I think the policy is perfect. I
Okay.
kind
I
of
think-
agree.
It's been tried by other agencies, and this is what they've come up with.
5-member boards, though, it seems.
They're almost all 5-member boards.
Yeah.
Except for the city
No,
of San
no,
Diego.
like
Except for the
seven
city of San Diego.
Or 9.
I've been on a lot of other boards that are 12, so 7. So I'm just, that's 20% of the people. Yeah. I agree we need a policy.
May I ask another question?
Yes.
Okay, the agenda policy provides that any member of the public can address the board, and then if two board members concur, it can be placed on a future agenda. So if someone who happens to be a member of the board, but they're also a citizen, can they take their role as citizen and say, I would like to discuss this with the board, and then put it on your next agenda?
I don't think so.
I don't think
I don't think so.
Well,
You-
it
you can't
says
be
any
both.
member of the public.
Once you're a board member.
If
you're
they're a
board
member of the
member.
public, they're a member of the public, and they're not a member
And
of
they're
the
no
board.
longer a citizen.
Oh,
Okay.
they're no longer.
No, they're not no longer a citizen,
Yeah,
but they don't
relinquish their
still have the
status.
same rights
Yeah,
that
have-
citizens have. Our role changes
You're
when we
supposed to
become a board member.
represent the citizens.
That's correct.
So, if one board member has, I agree you need an agenda policy, but if one board member has a concern and he'd like to discuss it with the rest of the board, to
I
me,
think what,
going in secret and then trying to get another board member, that sort of defeats transparency or the ability of one board member to discuss an issue that maybe be relevant to the public.
could
All he
be.
has to do is get a second board member to agree to that. If you have three board members discussing a subject,
Which you
Which is
are,
very
you're-
good, which is-
because you're
no.
discussing the
In-
agenda
No.
item
no,
with
That's what she
the-
said. All you're
with
saying
the
is
officer,
yes, it
and
can.
that's 3.
if you're going to go discuss an item, and this has happened in Julian, I've been an elected board member and working for boards for 40 years up here. You get two people together, that's perfectly legal. That's within the bounds of what they call the Brown Act, which is part of the government code, which
Yes, I'm aware of that.
says have how you have to do stuff. 3 people, it becomes a serial meeting. And that destroys all transparency because now you have a quorum with 3 people. And you're making decisions that aren't in front of the public like this.
All you're trying to do is get an item on the agenda for you to discuss.
All it takes is two people to agree, and then there it is.
And
Yep.
the person who,
No.
No,
That's-
if
No,
those
no,
two
no.
people agree, they give it to Rick. Rick puts it on the agenda.
Puts it on the
Or Jack puts
agenda.
it on the agenda.
Or if he doesn't agree.
Okay,
I
And
have
I'm
a
not
question.
considered part of the board. I don't. I'm
we're not
No.
discussing the
Part of it,
matter.
too.
We're just
but
saying
it says, requests for the agenda item, if made by two board members, still must be made to the chief. That's 3.
He's the one that writes the agenda up.
Oh, so at that point,
Yes.
it's not optional for him to put it on the agenda. If two board members say, we'd like to discuss this,
It's on
he's
the agenda.
simply recording the
Right.
item on the agenda, not deciding
Right,
whether.
that's correct.
Oh, okay, thank you.
It says if he approves.
Well, that's what I,
the
that's
fire
number
chief-
1.
the fire chief is the CEO of the district.
But he's acting in a clerical capacity when he's adding it to the agenda.
That's correct.
Okay.
Pat?
I think that part of the statement is really directed directly at Brian, who keeps trying to bring up issues that nobody else will second, nobody else will agree to. And so you've got one board member that you're basically blocking off the board and not allowing to say anything, because unless he gets agreement from somebody else, it's not going on the agenda. So any of his ideas
If the,
could be
It isn't-
Can
blocked.
I say
this is
something
named
about
at
that?
any-
And it may be inappropriate, I don't know. But a couple months ago, there was a lot of things added to the agenda. Some of the things he was asked to put on the agenda by others, even though his name was on there. And it ended up being stuff that wasn't even,
Germaine.
like not appropriate in the appropriate sense, if that's not the right
Like
word.
what?
I have a serious migraine this morning, so I'm not going to come up with an exact example because I truly can't think of.
Well,
But there was something on there that had to do with the association buying a tender, and we have no business spending association money. That's up to the association. And there was a couple things,
And they were pulled from the agenda.
and they were pulled for the agenda. If another person says, "Hey, would that really may be this, that, or the other," and it's like, "Oh yeah, I didn't think of that," and I'd be the first one to be like, "Oh man, I didn't think of that," because I do bounce things off people to make sure that, because I'm not 100% sure, this is the first board I've ever been on. So I like the idea of bouncing it off another person. Number one, so I wouldn't embarrass myself coming in, or that at least you have not an agreement, but at least you have someone on board, so to speak, with you when you go into that board meeting.
So that particular item, the water tender item, was an issue that was of concern to the community because the county had said we're going to pull the water tender.
I'm not getting
We're
a
gonna-
discussion from an old thing. It was spending association money that we have no control over.
But that's why I
Let's
brought it
focus
up.
the
was to-
attention on the item
Right.
on the
Yeah, we're
agenda.
going
Bring
way
it
off
into
track.
the,
But I brought it up so the community
You
would
asked
know.
for an example. That's what the example that I was thinking. And then several items were pulled. So I
Okay.
think,
It may be
I
coincidental.
Whatever.
he's being
Uh,
shut out.
I guess maybe the timing is bad. If it looks like this is
Yeah.
aimed at something that happened last month, it's not. It just happened to come from our attorney. It didn't come from her 2 months ago or 3 months ago or 4 months ago or next month or the month after. It happened to come in this last month, and I thought it was a good idea to have a policy, and so
No,
I
I don't
drafted one. I didn't draft it. I copied
a lot of it.
one that somebody else that did, and I have a suspicion that there are a lot of other agencies that have similar policies. Agencies that I work for did. And they always required a second council member to concur to put something on the agenda. For the same very reason that Kirsten has pointed out. Sometimes a second,
Set of eyes.
second set of eyes can point out to the person who wants to put something on the agenda that we just did that 6 months ago. Well, I wasn't here 6 months ago. Well, I'm just letting you know that. And it is intended to make the board meetings run more smoothly.
I,
And
that's how I read it. I didn't look at it as a chastisement towards anyone or group, individual, or anything
Right.
else. I'm just,
and it sets out the dates very clearly, so we all know if we want something on the agenda, when we need to get it, so that our staff can operate more and function more efficiently.
Would you like a motion on this policy?
Can I ask
No.
One way or the
question?
other, yes.
You can't
I
vote,
will.
this is not a.
Can I ask one more question?
I can't? Why not?
What do you
Uh,
okay.
Is there a motion
Can I ask a
dealing
question?
with this?
Karen wants to ask a question.
Karen?
I just see the bottom part, if two board members, I'm asking as a citizen, so if the two board members say, yeah, that's a good idea to go on the agenda, but at the bottom of page 1, it says the fire chief, if the fire chief approves the written request, does that keep it from going on the agenda if he doesn't approve it?
The intent of that is that the chief can prevent something going on the agenda that is suggesting we do something unlawful. We don't, that's where the screen has to occur. Otherwise, it
So
comes
it's
on
just
the
a-
agenda and we say, we can't do that because it's against the law.
Okay.
Well, why is it even on the agenda?
Right.
Because the
Well, that
chief
makes sense, but-
messed up and allowed it to get on the agenda. This says he has the right to keep things like that off the agenda.
That
isn't
type of thing,
clear.
That's right.
but nothing in general, like if the board wants to.
No.
That's what the clerical part is.
Okay.
Maybe change
Why do you-
that one word, make it a clerical
You ready to
definition.
make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make, I've read through this policy, it's, real similar to the policy that I work with, the Julian Community Services District, which has had this policy in place since 1965. So, I have no problem with this, it makes an operation, makes meetings go a whole lot smoother. So I'd like to make a motion to adopt this agenda policy.
Is there a
As
second to the
presented.
motion?
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded that we adopt this as the agenda policy for the district. Any further discussion? Or have we beaten it to death? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
No,
Any abstentions? Motion carries 4-1.